Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health. And really, without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
You know, if Jim Shooter had been left in charge, this shit wouldn't have happened.
Who the hell
is Jim Shooter?
Hey, that was my question. You shut up.
the shadows walkos, walking through both walls. Myth, books, and legends, unusual reality. Unsolved strange cases, bringing harmony. Comic books and legends, virtual reality. Unsolved strange cases, bringing harmony.
Welcome to episode 205 of Nerdery Murdery.
Big 205. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the ups, the
Whoa,
down, the good, the bad, the nerd, and the
whoa,
murd.
whoa.
What are you doing?
Hello. Can
What are
I
you
not
doing?
introduce myself?
Please.
No. So welcome to episode 205 of Nerdery Murdery.
Wow. This is Will.
We have our producer in the house this week. Go ahead.
Well, I tried, and you just interrupted me. Like, why do you treat me like this? This is why I will stay in my hole, and no one never gets to see me, because you just always want to put me in a hole.
I have a flow here. I have a rhythm. I got to get in it. I got to introduce you afterwards. Not used to you being here, which this is awesome.
Well,
Oh
you
my
never
God, I'm
allow
fucking crying.
you never allow me on. Like, how do you tell
Oh my
everyone
God.
that,
Oh my God.
I'm not used to you? You tell me not to get on.
Oh my God, the lies, the lies, the
How
lies.
is this a
Oh my
lie?
God.
How is this a lie?
I'm fucking crying.
Dear
It's
listeners, dear listeners, when we started this show, we were doing it in the same room. So he was there.
No. I was in the freaking basement with my laptop cables coming up the wall because you didn't want me to be around. Don't lie.
Oh my God.
I didn't have a
God.
basement.
Fuck.
You had a basement.
Well, if I had a basement, you dug it.
Oh God.
Oh,
I love you guys. Okay, sorry, I'll shut up.
I think you've made Zig pee on himself.
I hope so. God, I hope so.
Jesus Christ. Oh.
Oh, outstanding that William has talked this much on the show. That's
No,
awesome.
it's
That's
like
funny.
this is the most anyone's ever heard my voice.
I know.
I know.
Hey, and we have listeners that are like, when are you going to let William on the show? And I'm like, I don't
Like,
stop him.
Dude. God. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm listening.
Perfect.
okay.
So this week, I binge watched just over a couple of days because I had to keep going. I just watched Vice Principal. Only 2 seasons. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
That is
Danny McBride and Walton
hysterical.
Goggins just riffing on each
Yeah.
other. It's so good.
Yes, I'm going to get into Righteous Gemstones next because I've heard it's even better. Vice Principals was brilliant. Danny McBride character is so great, but Walt Goggins is incredible, and I've seen several interviews with him since about how he gets into the different characters and whatnot. I saw one this morning that when he was initially offered Boyd Crowder and Justified, he turned it down. He said because I guess he's from the Kentucky region originally. He talked about, he goes, I can't do this because I don't like the portrayal of my people.
Uh-huh.
And so they had to make him some guarantees on what the character would be and how it was going to portray before he could do it, because he said the last thing I want is to do this show and get a following for Boyd Crowder's ideals.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, he's that's one of the reasons why he likes working with Danny McBride so much, because it's like, yes, we want to show the humor in the stupid Southerner, but at the same time, we also want to point out that not everybody from the South is an idiot.
Right. I think it takes place in North Carolina.
Yeah.
For Vice Principals. And then in Righteous Gemstones, looks like he's a televangelist, I think.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to watch that because, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed Vice Principals. That was a great show. It ended so weird. I mean, it just went off the rails at the ending.
That was the whole point. Is like Danny McBride got done with Eastbound and Down, and he's like, okay, I want to do another show, but I want to do it like with like teachers or something.
Is Eastbound and Down good?
Oh, Eastbound and Down is hysterical, but it's the same sort of humor.
Okay.
Like Danny McBride and his friend made a movie called The Foot Fist Way, which is about a karate instructor.
Mhm.
And it basically they made it on no budget. They were running from the cops because they did not have permits. He was like, man, there's sometimes where we would be like in a 1979 Honda or a 1985 Honda running down the street, hoping we didn't get stopped.
God, even though he was a minor character, I loved his character in Tropic Thunder when he blows shit up and he's just like, big fat titty,
Big old
boom.
titties, boom. I love Danny McBride.
He is really good. I was concerned that he would be a small dosage character for me, but I couldn't get enough of him in Vice Principal.
Oh yeah,
Couldn't get enough.
Yeah, the he portrays that Southern man,
Well,
closet nerd so well.
Yeah.
He plays it so well because it's like he starts talking and I'm like, dude, I know 50 guys just like you. I know 50 dudes who once they get around, the other nerds where they can really open up their weirdness and just let it out.
Yeah.
Boom.
Outstanding.
Eastbound and Down is the same way, although more so. He's a disgraced professional baseball player.
Right.
Has to go back to his hometown.
Yeah, I knew the premise behind that. Awesome. All right. Well, cool. I know William's on a time crunch, so why don't you take it over on the nerdy side of the house?
Excellent. Today we're going to talk about Image Comics. We've been building up to this for a while with the comics. And when I say Image Comics, what I'm talking about is a holding company that also has Todd McFarlane Productions, Top Cow Productions, Wildstorm Productions, Highbrow Entertainment, Shadowline, and Extreme Studios. These were all part of Image Comics, and it has expanded since then.
Right. Because I know McFarlane went that direction. Rob Liefeld, I think, went that direction as well, didn't he?
Yep.
Did he go to Image? Yeah.
Yeah. He so Image is an American comic book publisher, and it's the third largest direct market comic book and graphic novel publisher in the industry. His best known publications include Spawn, The Walking Dead, Kick-Ass, Invincible, Jupiter's Legacy, Witchblade, The Max, Savage Dragon, Bone, Saga, Radiant Black, and Stray Dogs. It was founded in 1992 by several high-profile illustrators as a venue for creator-owned properties in which comic creators could publish materials on their own creations without giving up the copyrights. Normally, this is not the case in work-for-hire dominated American comics industry, where the legal author and the publisher, such as Marvel Comics or DC Comics, and their creator is an employee of that publisher. Its output was originally dominated by superhero and fantasy titles from the studios of the founding Image partners, but now includes comics in many genres by numerous independent creators. In the early 1990s, artists Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, and Jim Lee broke successive modern sales records at Marvel Comics with Spider-Man #1, X-Force #1, and X-Men #1, respectively. However, the creators became disconnected. Liefeld worried that their success actually made their position at Marvel precarious. And the way Liefeld said, we had become too big for the system. He said in 2000, Marvel didn't want a star system. McFarlane and Lee, on the other hand, felt undervalued at Marvel, where they were not paid for their art, or they're not paid for their art when it was reissued for merchandises such as T-shirts. So how this started, and there is a documentary about it, which I've included a little bit of, or at least bits of it from the Sci-Fi Wire. I've watched this several times. Todd McFarlane goes onto the floor of a comic book convention where he's been signing stuff and making a little bit of money. And he turns the corner and he notices the Spider-Man where his legs are up over his shoulders and he's swinging on a web. He had drawn that, right? He'd been paid for the comic, but he looks over and sees all these people buying this T-shirt, and he starts looking around the comic convention floor, and not everybody, but quite a few people are wearing that T-shirt, and he's thinking, "That's my artwork. I didn't get paid for the T-shirt sales."
Mm-hmm.
That's how this started, because he starts talking to Liefeld and Will Portacio and Jim Valentine and Eric Larson and Jim Valentino and Eric Larson, who are the two adults in the room because they were older than everybody else. Valentino and Larson, about how they're selling our stuff as comic. They're selling our stuff as T-shirts, and we're not getting paid for it.
I had to pull it up because I thought, maybe I'm wrong. I had to look because Spider-Man #1, the big McFarlane cover, I thought that was the picture. I'm looking at it right now, and I don't know if that's the
I don't
one or
know
not.
if it was #1. I think it's in the pages somewhere. Like it's a
Super
full
famous.
page. Yeah. And that was the thing. In comic books, that was the T-shirt to have.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And again, he's walking around the floor in like 1991. And so he starts talking to these other guys. And at the same time, Malibu Comics, which we've talked about, agreed to publish a creator-owned title by Rob Liefeld in 1991. In July that year, he announced plans to publish an independent comic called Youngblood, and in September, advertised a title called The Executioners to be published by Image Comics. Although Liefeld shelved plans for The Executioners after Marvel threatened to both sue him and fire him from X-Force, the characters later appeared in Youngblood as their own title as the Berserkers. The incident only further motivated him to pursue independent publishing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee are talking to Liefeld. Liefeld's already talking to Malibu about, because it's like Marvel doesn't own this stuff. I want to produce my own thing, and Malibu has agreed to do it. Liefeld soon invited Amazing Spider-Man artist Eric Larson and Guardians of the Galaxy artist Jim Valentino and McFarlane to join Image Comics. McFarlane then recruited Jim Lee at a Sotheby's auction in New York in December of 1991. Wolverine artist Mark Silvestri, who was also in town for the event, was also invited. Lee invited Uncanny X-Men artist Will C. Portacio shortly after. These 7 creators became the original founding partners of Image Comics. So they're at the Sotheby's auction in New York. They're all getting around talking. They go into a room, and they just start throwing ideas out. It's like, well, what if we did our own? And Liefeld's like, I've already got an agreement with Malibu. Gets the guy that owns Malibu on the phone, and they're talking about it. All of them together. And it's like, what if we had our own studios? What if Image was a main studio that all these other studios lived under, and Image would own the rights to the Image icon, and Image would take a percentage off of everything that was sold after we paid for the publishing. There it is.
That's the one.
That's the T-shirt that pissed him off.
Yep.
That one right behind you. Thank you.
That's what I thought.
For our listeners, he's got his background is now that picture that we were talking about that was on T-shirts everywhere between like 1991 to about 1993. Then it got taken over by Spot, which he also drew. So the organization had 2 key provisions. Image would not own any creator's work. The creator would. Image itself would own no intellectual property except the company trademark and its name and its logo. No Image partner would interfere creatively or financially with any other partner's work. And that was it. They wrote it up. In the documentary, they say someone knew a lawyer and they had them go over it. I think it was someone's brother-in-law, and I want to say it because I never said the guy's name in the documentary. I want to say it was The Savage Dragon guy. Sorry, it's a lot of names here. I'm throwing around. Eric Larson. I want to say it's like Aaron Larson's like brother-in-law. Because Jim Valentino and Eric Larson were family dudes. Like they were grown ass adults, whereas the rest of these guys were all in their early to mid 20s.
Mhm.
Liefeld was like 19 or 20 when they did this. He was young. The founders' initial titles were produced under the Image name but published through Malibu Comics, which provided administrative, production, distribution, and marketing support because they couldn't quite get their publishing arm off the ground when they were started releasing their comics. The first Image comic published was Liefeld's Youngblood #1 in April of 1992. So we're gonna wind this conversation back. They have this meeting outside the Sotheby's auction in December of 91, and by April of 92, they're producing comics. Pre-orders for the book reached 930,000 copies, beating the previous record for both the top-selling creator-owned comic and top-selling independent comics of all time. The second Image title was McFarlane's Spawn #1, debuting with a print run of 1.7 million copies in May of 1992.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it was Spawn 1 and not Spawn 0 because the whole Image and Malibu and all that, they started that trend with the issue 0.
No, it was Spawn #1.
Okay.
McFarlane went back and did a 0 later on.
Okay.
Same with Liefeld. They got this idea like a year into the run. I was like, we should all do 0s. Larson's The Savage Dragon and Lee's Wildcats and Valentino's Shadowhawk and Silvestri's Cyberforce followed, all with strong sales to comic shops. Within a few months, Malibu had almost 10% of the North America comic market share thanks to Image, briefly exceeding that of industry giant DC. So, for a small period of time, #1 was Marvel, #2 was Image, #3 was DC. In early 1993, Image left Malibu and established itself as an independent company, hiring Tony Lobito as its full-time publisher. And Tony Lobito, why is that so hard for me to say? It's too many O's. Tony Lobito was the publisher of record for Image for like 20 years. Image became the first publishing company to challenge Marvel and DC's dominance since the establishment of the direct market. Will C. Portacio was the only founder not to deliver the first issue of his own series in 1992. Portacio was reported to be working on a title called Huntsman with Chris Claremont, but opted instead to create his own title called Wetworks. The Huntsman character later appeared in issues of Wildcats and Cyberforce, written by Chris Claremont. However, work on the series was significantly delayed due to a death of Portacio's sister, and he decided to resign as an Image partner. In 2022, former Incredible Hulk artist Dale Keown said that he was approached in 1992 about taking Portacio's place, but declined because his criminal record made it difficult to travel outside of his home country of Canada. Keown still became the first non-founder to publish a creator-owned title with Image. The first issue of his series, Pit, sold more than 1 million copies to comic book shops. It was originally scheduled for November of 92, but shipped several months late. Image continued to expand in 1993 with new titles from both founders such as Liefeld's Bloodstrike and Lee's Stormwatch, and non-founders including Sam Keith's The Max, Larry Stroman's Tribe, Keith Giffen's Trencher, and Mike Grell's Shaman's Tears. In 1963 by Alan Moore, Steve Bissett, and Rick Veitch. Tribe became the largest selling African-American created comic with more than 1 million copies sold to comic shops. Moore went on to work on several Image series, including Spawn, Wildcats, The Max, and Supreme. Also in 1993, Image and Valiant Comics, run by Jim Shooter, began publishing the intercompany crossover Deathmate, which comic historians Jason Sachs described it as the first major comic universe crossover since the Marvel DC crossover, The Uncanny X-Men and the New Teen Titans was published in 1982. Some of the founder studios came to resemble separate publishers, each with several ongoing series set in a shared universe. The use of freelancers to write or illustrate series that were owned by the Image partners led to criticism that some of them had reproduced the very systems they had rebelled against, but with them in charge instead of the corporations. Many Image series quickly fell behind their intended publishing schedule. See controversies. In response, retailers cut orders to reduce their risk. In August of '93, Image cut back its line, citing lateness and desire to focus on books by the founders. The company announced that it canceled Shaman's Tears, Stupid, Trencher, and Tribe, and that several miniseries, including 1963 and Pit, would not become ongoing series. Moore's Enemies of Mankind and Frank Miller's Big Guy were indefinitely postponed. In late '93, Image hired Larry Marder as an independent cartoonist and former marketer for Chicago Comics retail chain Moondog to act as executive director for the publisher, ranking above Lobito and reporting directly to the partners. McFarlane told the Comic Journal that the founders had ignored Lobito's advice in the past, even when he was correct, because they didn't have confidence in his guidance due to his age and relative inexperience. But despite the scale back in 1993, Image continued to publish creator-owned comics by a variety of creators. Though many Image titles sold more than 500,000 copies per issue, in '92 and '93, the mid-1994, only the top-selling titles reached 250,000 sales or more. Marder determined that Image needed to publish at least 30 comic books per month to stay in business. And if the partners did not provide these books, I had to get those books wherever I could find them, Marder explained in 2007. So titles added in the mid-1990s included Hellshock by Jay Lee, Gru by Sergio Aragonis, Gru is great, Bone by Jeff Smith, I love Bone, A Distant Soil by Colleen Doran, Astro City by Kurt Busiek, Brent Anderson, and Alex Ross. In 1996, Lee founded a new sub-imprint called Homage Comics under his Wildstorm Studios label, described as a home for creator-owned materials as well as a safe haven from an increasingly challenging comic book market. The initial lineup consisted of Astro City, Terry Moore's previously self-published Strangers in Paradise, and a new title called Leave It to Chance by James Robinson and Paul Smith. The Image founders also continued to produce new top-selling series such as Gen 13 from Wildstorm and Witchblade and the Darkness from Silvestri's Top Cow production. In 1998, Wildstorm launched the commercially successful Cliffhanger sub-imprint to showcase creator-owned titles from a new generation of popular artists, starting with Humberto Ramos, J. Scott Campbell, and Joe Madureira. Now, as we have discussed before, after the peak in 1993, the speculation bubble burst. So what this was some business magazine or something published an article saying, hey, if you buy a comic book and keep it in plastic and sell it 10 years later, you will make a return on it. And he was talking about, and he mentioned the big returns. So the reason that Action Comics #3, the Superman comic, is so expensive is because there's like 8 of them out there. Most of them got destroyed. If they make 1 million comic books, or 930,000, I believe was that first print run for McFarlane, or was that, no, that was for Youngblood. 930,000 comics, almost 1 million. And 100,000 people put them in plastic and stick them on a shelf. That comic's not going to be worth much. It's just not.
Well, they still are though. Because I'm looking right now, like the original cover with all the color. There's one on eBay right now going for $25,000.
Holy shit! I guess the market came back. But
let me look up.
What had happened is these speculators had over promised on the returns.
Right.
So a lot of people started buying comics, putting them in plastic, sticking them in hermetically sealed boxes, and they realized at the time that their return was going to be a while, so they quit doing it, and the comic market kind of dropped. This kind of sucked because the Image guys went from being rock stars to just comic book artists. They were still making a decent living, but, Rob Liefeld couldn't couldn't make a full-size replica of the Youngblood shuttle on the floor of Comic-Con in New York City, which is what he was doing. And
Man,
again, Rob Liefeld was like 19, 20 years old.
I'm really surprised here. So it's the original cover that's in full color that is getting the
Youngblood
most.
#1.
No, Spider-Man.
No,
Is
not
getting.
Spider-Man. I'm talking about like the Image Comics.
No, I know, but you're talking about the people putting them in covers, and this is where I was going with this because I was
Oh,
looking
okay.
up this
Sorry.
one specifically. So the original cover of the with all the color,
Mhm.
35,000, but the gold, silver, and the especially the black one, which I figured would be the most, less than $200,
Mhm.
which is weird. What were you talking about? Which one were you wondering the price on?
Youngblood #1.
Got it. I'll get it.
Yeah, this when Image first started, the speculators went nuts on Image for some reason, and it wasn't just comic book fans. It was guys in business suits running down the comic book shop to pick these up.
Ouch.
What?
Uh, $5.
Yeah,
Ouch.
yeah. That's why the speculation dropped. And shit, when it sold, it was like $2. So it's doubled in price.
Ow. Ow.
Yeah,
That's gotta hurt.
yeah. Yeah. Those old Spider-Man comics, those things are rare because
Hmm.
people weren't putting them in hermetically sealed packages and storing them away to be pulled out later on. The speculation market was guys doing that in the early 90s, thinking they're going to get a huge return. Just like the Beanie Babies, like a few years later. They moved from comic books to Beanie Babies. They moved from sports cards to comics
Yeah.
to Beanie Babies.
Yeah.
And it's like, quit chasing it. Just if you want
Mm-hmm.
to buy the comics, read them, put them into plastic.
Well, and that was an era where people were trying to force something to become a collectible.
Exactly. Exactly. And you can't. You can't, especially when you have so many of them. The Youngblood, $5. Again, the thing sold for $2 when it came out, like $1.95, 92 prices.
92.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sold 25 million copies globally.
Yeah. Of course it's not going to be rare. So the first issue of Liefeld's ongoing Brigade series shipped before the conclusion issue of the Brigade Limited series, and Spawn #21 shipped before issues 19 and 20. So they were having some shipping issues. Fans lost interest in late books by the time they shipped. Retailers estimated the late shipping could affect sales by as much as 60%, according to the Comics Journal. Wildstorm was founded by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, who does not get enough props in a lot of this stuff. Brandon Choi was a pretty big mover and shaker at the time. And it was one of the founding studios that formed Image Comics in '92. Image grew out of Homage Studios and was founded by artists Wilcio Portacio, Jim Lee, Eric Larson, Rob Liefeld, Tom McFarlane, Mark Silvestri, and Jim Valentino. And we had Mark Silvestri come up as well, who was also a little bit older. And although Wildstorm considered attracting talent such as John Romita Jr. From the big two, Marvel and DC, Lee decided to find new talent instead. He yielded Brett Booth and J. Scott Campbell. But apart from McFarlane's Spawn, Wildstorm produced the most consistently commercially successful comic for Image. Of course, you got Wildcats and Gen 13 were real big. Deathblow and Cybermancy. They also McFarlane Toys were targeted a more mature audience. They had big success copying Wizards of the Coast Magic the Gathering and their introduction to the card game Wildstorm's the expandable superhero card game, which had production between 95 and 97. That was the other thing. After Beanie Babies, it was all about collectible cards. And we had a bunch of collectible card games, some of which were quite fun to play. There was a superhero one that DC and Marvel put out that was exceptional. So the big thing when they were getting this off the ground, and again, you watch some of these documentaries. And I have a great interview in our YouTube playlist with Jim Lee where he lines it all out. In this documentary, the guys are talking, and all of them said, if we could get Jim Lee, because Jim Lee was Marvel's golden boy.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Lee had spent his entire life wanting to work for Marvel Comics. That's all he ever wanted. He was great at it. But he was noticing the same thing with the t-shirts and the posters and stuff like that. He was like, I should at least be getting a piece of it. Yeah, I'm not asking for the world. I don't want you, I don't want you to charge $25 for a poster. But I should at least be getting a quarter out of it, And he was right. So they got Jim Lee to sign on with them. And Jim Lee became one of the most consistent studios with Wildstorm. Eventually, Jim Lee left and sold his Wildstorm comic imprint to DC. Jim Lee is now head of comics at DC and has been for years now. Wildstorm was retired and its titles were rolled into the DC secondary imprint, which I love and can never remember the name of. You know what? Vertigo. I have 4 of them on the shelf just right in front of me. Vertigo. So all of that stuff got rolled into Vertigo, and Jim Lee is still DC's head of comics to this day. They'll never get rid of Jim Lee because the sweetheart deal he pulled out of it for selling a Wildstorm. But the rest of them continued, and Scott Kurtzman, he started a really small series called The Walking Dead. Maybe you've heard of it. He ended up becoming a partner with the loss of Liefeld and Jim Lee. So yeah, getting Jim Lee was the big deal. But I also want to talk about one of the ones that most people don't think of when they're talking about it. It's Eric Larson. In 1992, seeking greater control and profit over the work they created, Larson and 6 other illustrators left Marvel to form Image Comics. Larson launched a series featuring a reworked version of Savage Dragon. This version was a massively muscled green amnesiac who joined the Chicago Police Department after being discovered in a burning field. Initially debuting in a 3-issue miniseries, the series met with enough success to justify a monthly series, and it was launched in 1993. Larson continued to write and illustrate the series entirely by himself, usually maintaining a roughly monthly schedule, except during times when it was not in production. As an Image partner, he formed the studio Highbrow Entertainment, which publishes through Image. Savage Dragon is one of the 2 original Image Comics titles still published, the other being Spawn, and the only one still written and drawn by its creator. The character was also adapted into a short-lived 26-episode USA Network animated series that started in 1995. In 2004, Larson replaced Jim Valentino as publisher of Image Comics. So eventually Jim Valentino replaced the guy that they got. Like I said, he did it for like 20 years, and then they replaced him with Jim Valentino. He took responsibility for all comics produced by creators other than the Image partners and their studios. Larson stepped down as publisher in July 2008, and executive director Eric Stevenson was promoted to the position. So now Eric Stevenson's running it. Fans wanted more Savage Dragon, and I wanted to do more Savage Dragon, but it was not possible to be both a full-time publisher and a full-time cartoonist effectively. Something had to give, and given the fact that the Image was in a good place, going to the right direction, and Eric Stevenson was completely up to speed and ready to go, it seemed that the timing was right. So he had to put Savage Dragon on hold from 2004 to 2008. However, it went from a monthly comic series to, I think, a bi-monthly. So instead of producing one every month, he was producing one every 2 months. It is back to being a single monthly comic now. So when they started Image Comics, Eric Larson started doing Savage Dragon by himself in 1992. He is still doing it today. That's some dedication, baby. That's a guy who wants to make comic books. He wants to make them funny books, and he's still doing it. McFarlane is not really doing as much with Spawn now. He's got he's basically the face of Image. Um, he is he's got his toy line. He's got some other stuff. He still does stuff for Spawn, but it's not just him by himself. It's a studio. Eric Larson, Eric Larson's doing Savage Dragon, um, and it's amazing. This is one of the titles that Don was really into in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think he kept that print run going until like 2004. So he's got a box of Savage Dragon. It's beautiful. Or at least he did. He may have gotten rid of them. And again, I realize I'm all over the place, but it's the problem here is we had 6 studios that started at the same time. We talked about McFarlane, some of his stuff, which is the most well known. But like Top Cow was founded by Mark Silvestri. Top Cow attracted several professionals, including artist Brandon Peterson, Garth Ennis, and former Marvel staffer David Wohl. The company also helped launch the careers of various writers and artists such as Christina Z, Joe Benitez, Michael Turner, and David Finch. In 1996, Top Cow briefly parted ways with Image during a power struggle with Image associate Rob Liefeld. Liefeld left the company shortly after Top Cow's departure, and Top Cow returned to the partnership. Alan Silvestri and Rob Liefeld came to blows. I'm trying to say this as much as I can, without being an asshole to either one of these guys, because I don't want to be. I love Jim Valentino. I love Rob Liefeld. I would ask him to draw feet and see if he doesn't come up and try to punch me in the face if I ever met him. They made a joke about it in the Deadpool movie because he can't draw feet. That's why he always puts everybody in huge boots. Fine. Rob Liefeld did not take any life modeling or any of that stuff. His stuff is all out of his brain as a teenager with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
That's why his stuff looks the way it does, and his stuff is brilliant, and I love it. He could probably use a little help on his dialogue, but luckily he's got some good writers with him. He was a 19 to 20-year-old kid when they started doing this. They gave him millions of dollars because he went from being, the young punk kid in the Marvel stable, making a decent living, especially for a 19, 20-year-old kid living in New York City. He was doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then they gave him millions of dollars and treated him like a rock star. He did not have, and he has admitted this later on, he did not have the capacity to understand what was going on.
Right.
Jim Valentino, who was the adult in the room, him and Eric Larson's just doing his shit, Jim Valentino, who is the adult in the room, who had a wife, kids. He had come from the independent comic universe before going to Marvel. So he actually cut his teeth doing small print runs like Ralph Snart Adventures and stuff like that. Slave labor graphics, shit like that. So he knew that, yes, your comic's going to be great and everybody's going to want it, and then they're not. And the reason he went to Marvel and DC too was because it was a steady paycheck. But his heart was always with the independent stuff. So he's watching Eric Liefeld spend incredible amounts of money, go out partying with rock stars, doing what rock stars do, and he's trying to rein him in. And at the same time, Liefeld's fallen behind because his studio was a party every day. It wasn't producing like the rest of them were. So he and Liefeld it started with as arguments, and then it eventually. This is reported by a third person, who was in the room. It came to a shoving match and punches were thrown. Liefeld's like, fuck you, fuck this place, I'm out of here. And the whole time, Jim Valentino's like, dude, don't do it. Don't fuck yourself up. It was all out of a place of love from Valentino. And it was all out of a place of Rob Liefeld being all the way on the left on the Dunning-Kruger scale. Which is, he knew only what he had seen. And what he had seen is he went from a kid who got to draw comic books for a living to being a millionaire in like 2 years. 3, maybe. And then just stayed as a millionaire going on. But he's not producing. His stuff is coming in late. They're already having trouble with the publishing run. Because as soon as they left, Malibu was keeping up. But as soon as they left Malibu, and they had to publish it themselves, they were having trouble because their publisher was like sending this stuff off and is like, dude, quit sending shit out of order. Send them out in order. But the publisher was like, I don't know, we've never done comics before, because the publishers that they could get didn't want to queer things with DC and Marvel. Because DC and Marvel made these guys persona non grata in the comic book world for probably about a decade. Again, they started their own little small imprints, a la Jim Lee going to DC and Vertigo, as kind of remuneration, pulling that persona non grata thing back because they realized they fucked up. So you got Rob Liefeld going off, and Rob Liefeld, his life kind of took a rough turn. He has since come back. He's got his own studio. He's working out of LA now. He has actually come back to Image Comics. Like, he brought his stuff back. The separate imprint, Maximum Press, which went on to go independent, and he shut down Extreme Studios. He's brought Extreme Studios back, and now Rob Liefeld is publishing again. Matter of fact, he's publishing Youngblood again. But again, I don't want to blame Rob Liefeld because he was doing what he thought was right. He was like, hey, the standard principle says that that we're not going to interfere with each other's production because it's in the bylaw. And Jim Valentino was essentially doing that. He's like, you need to get your shit together. You need to get your your runs right, because our publishing schedule's already fucked up. You need to quit turning your shit in late. This conversation went on for years. And Rob Liefeld's point was, hey, it's in the, we have 2 rules. Image only owns its stuff, and nobody interferes with anybody else's stuff. And Jim Valentino was like, yeah, but you're killing us. You're fucking killing us. You got to get your shit in right. I don't care what you do. You need to have it in on time. Because again, Jim Valentino's an adult in the room. Rob Liefeld's this young creative buck. They have since mended fences, and I think Jim Valentino understands where Rob Liefeld was coming from, and I think Rob Liefeld now understands where Jim Valentino was coming from. And in both cases, it was out of love of Image Comics and each other a little bit, because these guys weathered a lot of storm. They got blacklisted in the comics industry for a long time. And then Rob Liefeld got a lot of shit because he was portrayed as the bad guy for a long time, not in Image, but in the press, the comic press after this, which is where the whole thing with, yeah, fuck Liefeld, he can't even draw feet. That's where that comes from. But, Going back with Jim Valentino, Shadowline was officially created in December of '92 when the logo first appeared on the inside front cover of Jim Valentino's Shadowhawk. The first book to sport the logo on its cover was Shadowline Special Number 1. In January of 1997, Shadowline became more commonly referred to as the No Line with the publications of A Touch of Silver Number 1. The name referred to the fact that the comics in the line at that time were not in any way aligned with one another. There was no singular universe or line, hence No Line. On August 25th, 1999, Jim Valentino became the publisher of Image Comics, taking over for that first guy. And then Eric Larson eventually took over after that. In July of 2004, with the publication of the Normal Man 20th Anniversary Special, the name Shadowline was reborn, and Jim Valentino took over doing his stuff again. And finally, I want to talk about Will C. Portacio. He was the 7th member who didn't start his own company because his sister passed away when this was all happening. Suddenly. In '92, Portacio left Marvel to go co-found Marvel, or Image. He quickly withdrew from Image due to his sister's illness and eventual death. He eventually published his title Wetworks through Jim Lee's Wildstorm imprints in '94. Other notable series that Portacio worked on included Stone and Marvel's controversial Heroes Reborn storyline within Iron Man. And at the time, Portacio's artwork is notable for his impressive action-packed splash pages with one character dominating the page borders. And in 1998, he started Avalon Studios with Brian Haberlin, which is now part of the Image Studios. So again, I realize we kind of looped back and forth from 1992 up to 2008. Image is going strong. It's doing very well. Occasionally, it will outsell DC for, a couple of months here or there, especially when they get their stuff made into television series or movies, which they've done. It's always going to sell better than Valiant, Dark Horse, Malibu, which I think is actually gone now. But it's never going to outpace Marvel. Marvel's always going to be number one, at least for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Who does Lobo?
DC.
Is Lobo DC? Okay.
Lobo is DC. Lobo is DC's answer to Wolverine.
Okay. So here's the deal with that. Why is Marvel king? Marvel is king because their movies are considered superior to DC's.
Mm-hmm.
They have the following because of the movies. The movies brought Marvel so much into the I mean, there's a reason Disney bought it.
Yeah.
That's keeping Marvel at number one for many years. You had Marvel, you had DC, and they would it was back and forth. Who was number one? Who was number one? Marvel sits currently on top as king because of their movies, which are most people consider pretty damn good. Some of the most recent ones, maybe not so much. DC has had a problem with movies. They do much better on TV shows.
Yes.
That are considered very popular, but they're not encompassing that Marvel brand. In saying that, DC and Marvel were 1 and 2, 1A, 1B, however you want to look at it, because there's people that like Marvel, there's people that like DC. Image came out and gave them a run for their money.
Yes, they fucking did. They beat DC.
They beat DC. They didn't beat Marvel. They still stayed second to Marvel. But Image came out and was a force of nature. And the reason I asked about Lobo, if it's done right, Lobo could really excel DC because there is a Lobo movie coming out.
Yes, there is.
And the reason I say it could excel DC, from everything I've heard, unless it's changed, Jason Momoa is Lobo.
Yeah. Who the fuck else are you going to get?
That could very potentially skyrocket DC if it's done right.
Dude, I can see him in the fucking makeup right now.
I am not a believer that James Gunn is going to rebirth DC.
I think James Gunn hit lightning in a bottle with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mhm.
I don't think he can do the same thing with DC. We'll see what's coming. We've got the
Yeah.
new Superman movie coming out, which the trailer has me concerned. Um, you know,
I
they
liked the Batman with the vampire kid too. I thought that was great.
and see, and I haven't seen that one yet. I keep wanting to sit down and see that, but I haven't.
I thought it was pretty fucking good because he's a young Batman and he's getting his ass kicked a lot.
But DC is going to have to make some incredible movies to beat Marvel.
Mhm.
They're just going to have to, and Lobo may be it because Lobo has a big following,
Yeah.
and then stack on top of it the big following that Jason Momoa has. They tried it with Black Adam,
Mhm.
didn't quite succeed, even though it's The Rock and everybody loves The Rock and everything like that. Lobo stands a chance.
Yeah. Well, Black Adam's an anti-hero though.
Right.
Well, then again,
so's
so's Lobo.
Lobo.
Lobo's a motherfucker.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. But like I said, Image gave Marvel and DC a big run. A big
Yeah, it
run.
did.
So
Sorry, kids. This one went long because there was a lot of information.
yeah, and that's okay. Mine is kind of short. That it?
That is it
Okay.
for Image. Image. I wanted to get that conversation going. But you
Yeah.
said it the best way. I could not say it that way, and thank you for that because
Sure.
that's the point I was trying to get at.
Yeah. I loved a lot of the Image stuff. I read a lot of them. Sometimes it was a little too gritty and dark for me. I'm not a huge fan of the gritty and dark, which strangely enough. Spawn was a little too gritty and dark for me. McFarlane's Spider-Man was just gritty and dark enough
Mm-hmm.
for me. So some of the titles I struggled with on that.
And it all started with that picture behind him.
Yeah.
That's what pissed him off.
With my head being in Spider-Man's crotch this whole episode.
Very nice.
So
Spider Dick.
Get out there and check out some of the Image titles. I think you'll enjoy them. Like I said, some of them are very, very dark. Some of them are a lot more lighthearted. But some of the artistry you're going to see in the Image titles is just beyond.
It's superior.
So
my biggest problem with Image, and it's not that way anymore. When they first came out, the art was incredible. The writing left a little bit to be desired.
Right.
But again, they were trying to form up. They were trying to sell comic books, so it was like big splashy art. And we'll worry about the writing. We'll worry about storylines later. And then you get stuff like The Walking Dead, which is perfect, or Bone, or The Max. Oh my God. Tragic. Okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
No worries. So get out there, check those out. Image was really good. I appreciate you talking about all this.
Sure.
This is we nerd out about comics, and Image was one that I got into. I was never a big DC reader. I read a little bit of it. I read some Green Lantern, some Batman, but Marvel was always what I read. I had a pull at the comic book shop that was pretty much entirely DC, but I had some Image that I was doing as well. But
it was entirely Marvel with Image thrown in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because this cover that you're looking at right here behind me, I had that issue. I had that one. I had the gold one, and I had the all color one. So you're holding up a finger. I think you have a point.
No, I was pointing at the picture.
No. All right.
It's above me. Oh wait, they may be watching this to the side there.
Right. I don't know how they're watching it. So, all right. So with that, we'll step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Wikipedia, NBC News, Medium, All That's Interesting, and the FBI's website. And this is the death of Ricky McCormick.
Ricky McCormick.
As I said, this was a little short, but it's very interesting. You'll notice that most of my stories are the disappearance of so-and-so, the murder of so-and-so. the blah, blah, blah tragedy, I want to be very specific that I have put the death of Ricky McCormick on this one. And you'll see why. You'll see why. So on June 30th, 1999, there was a woman who was driving along a rural highway in Missouri, and she noticed something unusual in a nearby cornfield. As she approached, her curiosity quickly turned to horror because lying amongst the stalks was a badly decomposed body. The body would later be identified as Ricky McCormick, a 41-year-old man with a history of health issues and psychological struggles. But as authorities dug deeper, they uncovered a very perplexing twist to the case. In his pocket were 2 pages filled with an encrypted message that to this day remains unsolved. Ricky McCormick lived a difficult life. He was born on June 14th, 1958. Ricky seemed to struggle with mental health issues from a very young age. It was reported that he stood alone at recess, acted strangely, and told odd stories. His mother, for her part, came to believe that her son was, quote, retarded. He was a high school dropout who held multiple addresses in the greater St. Louis area. And by the time Ricky McCormick dropped out of high school, he could barely read or write. He suffered from a chronic lung and heart condition, had a history of psychological issues, and struggled with literacy. He bounced between his mother's, aunts, and girlfriend's home in St. Louis, which in the 90s was plagued by gang violence. He was not married, but he had fathered at least 4
What up,
children.
Mike?
He was not married, but fathered at least 4 children. He had a criminal record and had previously served 11 months of a 3-year sentence for statutory rape. He was charged with statutory rape for having 2 children with a girl known to his family only as Pretty Baby, who was younger than 14. His public defender believed that Ricky was, quote, suffering from some mental disease or defect, but he was still found fit to stand trial. At the time of his death, again, he was 41 years old, unemployed, and receiving disability welfare payments. He did hold odd jobs, but his life was marked with instability, and in the weeks leading up to his death, his behavior grew increasingly erratic and paranoid. Following his release from prison, Ricky found a graveyard shift job at an Amoco gas station in downtown St. Louis, and it was there he came across several shady figures who may have played a role in his mysterious demise. The Amoco was managed by 2 brothers from Palestine, Juma and Baha Hamdallah.
Yeah, Palestine.
Both had violent reputations, and while in their employ, Ricky made a handful of mysterious trips to Florida. His girlfriend later told police she believed he was smuggling marijuana for the Hamdallah brothers, and he seemed scared. Just days before his disappearance, Ricky had sought medical help twice, visiting different emergency rooms. They said his behavior was disturbing, that he seemed anxious, agitated, and deeply fearful of something or someone. And on June 25th, he entered a hospital pleading to be admitted. The doctors couldn't find any physical ailments, but they did note his paranoia and distress. He was allowed to stay in the hospital lobby overnight, and Ricky spent the entire time sitting upright, his eyes focused on the entrance as if he was expecting someone to walk in. His odd behavior continued when he left the hospital the next morning. He went to a payphone and called his girlfriend Sandy, sounding disoriented and exhausted. He told her he had spent the night at the hospital, but didn't clarify that he had only stayed in the lobby. And this was the second time in a week he had sought emergency care for breathing problems that doctors ultimately deemed to be psychological rather than physical. So Sandy had become alarmed. She said Ricky had grown increasingly paranoid in the weeks leading up to his death. He would become startled whenever someone walked by their apartment door, reacting as if he had expected an intruder. She pressed him for answers, but Ricky refused to explain what he was afraid of. She pleaded with him to come to her apartment so she could care for him, but Ricky refused. Instead, he said he was going to get something to eat from a nearby gas station and promised to call her later, but that call never came. Surveillance footage from the gas station confirmed Ricky's last known movements. He entered on June 26th and purchased food. A worker later reported seeing him again the following day on June 27th, but after that he vanished. His family didn't see him, and he didn't check into another hospital. 3 days later, his body was found in the cornfield 20 miles north of St. Louis. It was an area he had no reason to be in and had no means of reaching on his own because he didn't have a car, he didn't have a driver's license, and there was no public transportation to that area. So if he had walked, it would have been a 15-mile trek from his last known location, which is a very unlikely scenario because of his heart and lung condition. But even more suspicious was the state of the body. So Ricky had only been missing for 3 days.
Mhm.
However, his remains were significantly decomposed, far more than expected for that short period of time. His fingers crumbled from his hands, and his body was described as falling apart. Um, this led investigators to theorize he had been killed elsewhere and kept in a heated location, accelerating the decomp before being dumped in the cornfield. Initially, police treated Ricky's death as a homicide. The location of his body was a known dumping ground for murder victims, and the circumstances of his disappearance were suspicious. But within 24 hours, the St. Louis police abruptly changed their stance. They announced that Ricky had likely died of natural causes due to his history of heart and lung conditions. This was a very stunning reversal. How could someone with no means of reaching the location, who had spent past weeks of intense paranoia, suddenly turn up dead in an area he had never known to visit? His body was in an advanced state of decay, making it difficult to determine his exact cause of death, but authorities claimed it was natural and closed the case. All the evidence surrounding this, including the strange documents in his pockets, were then stored away and largely forgotten. 6 months later, the FBI received a tip that revived interest in Ricky's case. They were investigating a major St. Louis drug dealer who allegedly was ordering hits on rivals. A confidential informant came forward and told the FBI that Ricky had been involved with this criminal figure in some capacity, which kind of begs the question how. He was functionally illiterate, he was mentally unstable and struggling with homelessness. What role could he possibly have played in a high-level drug operation? But
Bagman.
maybe. When the FBI
Muscle. Oh wait, no, but he couldn't
No.
hardly eat. Okay.
When the FBI reviewed Ricky's case file, that's when they discovered the piece of evidence that local police had stacked away, the 2 sheets of paper found in his pocket. These documents contained 30 lines of an unbreakable code made up of letters, symbols, and numbers arranged in a seemingly random order. The FBI's best code breakers, including Dan Olson, head of the FBI's Cryptanalysis and Racketeering Records Unit, CRRU, were brought in to decipher the message. And despite decades of experience in breaking complex ciphers, Olson and his team could make no sense of it. And if Ricky had written it, how did he, a man who couldn't even fill out his own hospital discharge paperwork, create such an intricate code? And if someone else gave it to him, why was Ricky carrying it? Hello, puppy.
This is Bowser.
Hi, Bowser. The FBI did go public in 2011, asking amateur code breakers and cryptologists worldwide to help solve the riddle. A few days later, they updated their website to note the, quote, outpouring of responses and established a separate page where public can offer comments and theories. But to this day, no one has cracked the cipher. Ricky's encrypted notes are currently listed as one of the CRRU's top unsolved cases, with Ricky's killer yet to be identified. According to members of Ricky's family, Ricky had used encrypted notes as a boy, but none of them knew how to read the code. However, speaking in 2012, Ricky's family members said they never knew of Ricky to write in code. They say that they only told investigators he sometimes jotted down nonsense he called writing, and they seriously questioned Ricky's capacity to craft the notes found in his pocket. His mother, Frankie, said, quote, the only thing he could write was his name. He didn't write in no code. His cousin Charles said Ricky, quote, couldn't spell anything, just scribble.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he was trying to write something down in an approximation of writing, and the reason they can't decipher it is it doesn't mean anything. You know, like a 5-year-old. It's like, hey, write your stuff. Write me a story. And they just...
In the link to our in the links in our show, I'm linking out to the FBI's website. They do not believe it was scribble. They do believe it's code. There's some very distinctive patterns.
Oh wow! So that it actually does look like a real code.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and there are pictures of it on their website. His death remains a mystery. There was his sudden paranoia, his attempts to seek refuge in hospitals, his disappearance, his body all turning up in an unlikely location. This all points to something more sinister. Um, was his murder due to the involvement with the drug dealer? Did the code found on him contain information that got him killed? If so, though, why entrust them to Ricky? He was
Yeah.
ill-equipped to safeguard sensitive information. And the only clue that might unlock this mystery is the coded message that they found. If deciphered, it could reveal who killed Ricky McCormick and why. Um, until it is, this case, it remains one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in FBI history. Though Ricky's death remains unsolved, police have looked at a number of McCormick of suspects. Ricky McCormick's old boss, Baha Hamdallah, was known to be violent. Police also heard in December '99 that a local drug dealer, Gregory Lamar Knox, had allegedly murdered a black man who worked at the Amoco gas station. They did surveil both of these men. However, investigators could not link either Hamdallah or Knox to Ricky's death. Um, so, as such, his death is a mystery, as does the coded text. Is the code the clue to his killing or something else entirely? Um, Maybe they were a shorthand that Ricky invented and decipherable only by him.
Mhm.
The FBI doesn't think so. Whatever they are, the
Well,
FBI
and
is still on.
honestly, Ricky's kind of the perfect guy to deliver that stuff because he can't read it.
Potentially. Well, nobody can read. You'll have to look at this, man.
Yeah.
You'll have to look at these code. Google Ricky McCormick coded letter and look at these things. Um, whatever they are, the FBI still wants to solve them, and they have asked if you have an eye for code and puzzles, please examine them yourself. They're on the FBI's website. Maybe somebody out there will be able to break the code and uncover the truth behind Ricky's death. If you have an idea how to break the code, or you have seen similar codes, the FBI has asked you to contact them at the FBI laboratory, the Cryptanalysis and Racketeering Records Unit, which is at 2501 Investigation Parkway, Quantico, Virginia, 22151. Attention, Ricky McCormick's case. And that's the strange story of the death of Ricky McCormick.
That's bizarre.
It is very bizarre. And like I said, take a look at the code.
I just
Um,
did. I was like, well, that's weird.
they talk about on FBI's website there's the ease in there point to the fact that those may be spaces in between words because of the amount of them.
Hmm.
But they just can't figure it out. They've got a whole list there of when you're doing code cracking, these are the 4 things you look for, and they've only been able to get past about the first 2 on this code. It's very strange, very interesting. I just I just found this story late this week, and I was like, yeah, that's wild,
That's weird. That's
wild,
weird.
wild,
And
wild.
why did his fingers crumble if he'd only been missing for 3 days?
I know his decomp is weird. When I got to that part in the story that his fingers crumbled off, I was like, oh my God, just messed up. 3 days,
Hmm.
3 days.
It was a
Um,
cornfield. It's not like he was in a jungle.
right, right.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's my story for this week.
Well, thank you, sir. That was fascinating and interesting.
So, thank you for taking that journey with me. That will take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find us at nerderymurdery.com. That's our website, our hub for everything we talk about. There will be links to what we talked about in this episode, plus pictures. And you'll also find our link to YouTube, which Sig so often update.
Yeah, and this one you've got some great interviews with Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld about how they started. Plus, hey, these are the best Image comics. Hey, this is Image comics. This is why they're awesome. Plus a brief history. It's just really fascinating stuff,
Awesome. Appreciate all
but
the
a
work you
deeper
do on that.
dive than what we did.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. You can also find the link to our merchandise page, where if you wish to show off your nerdery murdery fandom, please do consider doing that. You can also find the link to our Patreon, where our patrons help donate to the costs that are associated with the show. That, along with our merchandise, help keeps us on the air. There are costs associated with our production, keeping us on the air, the software we use, our uploads, our storage, everything like that. It is not free, but we do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Something you can do for free, though, if you will, please leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the information that we discuss. And last but not least, as always, Chuck, you can go to sleep now.
Go to sleep, Chuck.
With that,
I've been Zig with your nerdery.
and I'm Geoffrey with your murdering.
Cue the music.
Digital detectives chasing down a clue in the world of fiction that the headlines do. Superheroes rising, monsters in the night, board games and mysteries, stories taking flight. Nerdery and murdery, we're doing it each week. True crimes, geeky times, voices that we seek. Comic books and legends, virtual reality. Unsolved strange cases, blend in harmony. Comic books and legends, virtual reality. Unsolved strange cases, blend in harmony. Between the con panels and the crime scene talks, we explore the shadows, walking through both walks. Nerdery and murdery, we're doing it each week. True crimes, geeky times, voices that we seek. Comic books and legends, virtual reality. Unsolved strange cases, blend in harmony. Be the con panels and the crime scene talks. We explore the shadows, walking through both walls. Comic books and legends, virtual reality.